And that's why it's getting hot, I can feel the heat. It's too cold, I can feel the street. I'm just trying to make it through the day, not in my head trying to feel the beat. I'm trying to feel the beat. I'm trying to feel the beat. I'm trying to feel the beat. You gotta feel the beat. I'm trying to feel the beat. I just wanna feel the beat. I'm trying to feel the beat.
Feel the beat. 290 people in the United States have fallen victim to gun violence in the last 72 hours. Is now a good time to talk about gun reform?
The George Croom Experience, presented by Ad Closure, the secret agent of top agents. Is your home being marketed or is it just listed? Tell your agent you want Ad Closure marketing to help sell your home faster.
Welcome to the George Croom Experience. I am George Croom, and I'll be ushering you through the next 20 or so minutes, like I always say, but I'm tightening it up a little bit. I'm getting better. The boy got his chip tooth fixed. You dig what I'm saying? So here we go. Let's pay a couple of bills. The George Croom Experience is presented by Ad Closure, the secret agent of top agents. Talk to your agent about adding Ad Closure marketing and sell your home quicker. Let's get into it. Bring us up, DCap.
One Love, how FIFA is bringing social light to the darkest corners of Qatar.
So FIFA, the governing body of the football and soccer internationally, said that they would give yellow cards to any player that entered the field of play with the One Love armband on. So the One Love armband is something that different countries, and there was a couple of them. There was England, Wales, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark was one of them that were expected to wear this armband. And the armband symbolizes inclusivity, diversity, and anti-discrimination. FIFA was cool with it until, of course, probably some countries like Qatar, or Qatar, as it's supposed to be said, were offended by the fact that they were doing that, especially Iran, because England was one of those countries that was playing them this week, and England was gonna wear that armband, and we know what Iran is having issues with right now with women and their restriction of women's rights and women fighting back against what they feel is an oppressive regime that has been generations, centuries in the making. And I'm pretty sure they all pushed back. I'm pretty sure there was money on the line from those countries, and FIFA said we can't lose that money. And so they backtracked, told all these countries they can't wear the One Love armband and that they were going to give yellow cards to any team that actually wore it. I can't support an organization that's going to backtrack on something that relates to people being included into their society, not being discriminated against. FIFA, of course, said that they were going to have anti-discrimination armbands, but that's not enough. It's not enough to come back and say that you're going to have these armbands now, these anti-discrimination armbands, because that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. Qatar and Iran are looking at that like, fine, whatever, they can have anti-discrimination. But the moment you start talking about inclusivity and you start talking about diversity, no, not doing that. They don't allow that in their countries. So, of course, countries like that are the ones that gave pressure against FIFA. And I believe that the almighty dollar and a little bit of monetary pressure was what made FIFA back down. So I'm telling you, I'm going to use the time that I was going to talk about FIFA over the next couple of weeks to talk about the things that they're against. Inclusivity, diversity, and truly being anti-discriminatory. Bring us in, Cap.
What in the ACL is going on with athletes and the rise of leg injuries?
Back when children boxed, when they played baseball, when they played basketball, when they played football, when they played different sports over and over again, every season had a different sport. They weren't getting injured at the level that they're getting injured now. And there's plenty of studies. There's a University of New Hampshire study that agrees with this. There's a Duke University study that agrees with this. There's some studies from Australia and their federation of physicians that feel overtraining and having players play specialized sports is leading to these injuries. And this is more sad because Hooker was a top draft prospect and will now have this knee issue cost him millions of dollars. He likely will drop if he was on Mel Kiper's big board as I believe fourth amongst quarterbacks for this next upcoming draft. And he'll likely drop out of that. He'll likely drop down to a third, fourth, fifth round pick because of this knee injury. That's millions. I mean, that's potentially a guy going from a guy who had transformational family transforming wealth dropped in his lap to a guy who now might have to struggle for a couple years and hopefully get a chance to possibly make it and put his family in that same position for 5 years from now, barring him getting hurt again, doing the line of work that also got him hurt in the first place. I mean, there's no money in playing for your teammates anymore. We can tell guys, hey, play for your team. We used to love that. But the NFL does not care if you're playing for your team or not. All they actually care about, all anybody actually cares about is winning. They care if you win games. They care if you're not toxic while you win games. Here's our proof. Kobe was a dude who was not necessarily likable, but he learned not to be toxic. Jordan was a guy who was not likable, but he learned not to be toxic to his teammates. There's some that say Tom Brady was that guy for a while who was not fun to play with, but had to learn not to also be toxic. Teams care about winning. They don't care about you being a toxic dude. So why is it that players are now caring to the point where they're losing millions of dollars for teams? I'm not opposed to a college player saying, you know what, I'm going to forego my senior season. Hooker was a senior. He was a senior getting ready to go into the NFL draft and likely get drafted very high. He was a senior. I have no problem if Hooker had said, you know what, I'm going to skip this senior season. I had a great season last year. You've seen my resume. I'm going to go train for the NFL draft, and I'm going to come out, be a high draft pick, and put my family in a position to be very good for life. I'm okay with that at this point. I'm okay with guys saying that they're going to forego senior seasons, college at all, if they're basketball players, because they're going after the money. Because in no other place on earth, in no other position on earth, would we tell a person, a kid no less, to not go for the money because they want to be a team player. Never heard anybody say, hey man, go work in that office building and be a team player and work for $30,000 a year. No, if you have the ability to go work for 6 figures a year in the same office, nobody's ever going to tell you to go work for $30,000. That's facts. Bring us in, Cap.
Do the Trojans have an Achilles heel waiting in the Pac-12 championship?
We have to be able to look at the fact that Lincoln Riley has bought this team from a 4-8 team just last year as a new head coach. He's the kingmaker. Lincoln Riley is the kingmaker. He's done it with QBs. He's done it with teams. At Oklahoma, he brought Oklahoma from the depths when Stoops left, and now Oklahoma is now a great team again. Was a great team before he left, and now USC is a great team now that he's there. Kingmaker, Baker Mayfield, Heisman, Kyler Murray, Heisman, Jalen Hurts, discarded by Alabama, replaced by Tua Tagovailoa, and came to Oklahoma, became a starter, had a breakout season, and is now the quarterback in the NFL of one of the best teams in the NFL. Kingmaker. Lincoln Riley brings Caleb Williams over by transfer. He was a freshman last year. He was a sophomore this year. This kid has 33 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions, and a passer rating over 167 as a sophomore. Kingmaker. His team, if they went out, I'm sorry. So I have to look at it, and here's how I see it. I'm going to break it down like this. Here's how I see it. If Georgia wins out, which I don't foresee them not winning out, TCU will win out. They'll also be in. So that's 2 teams in the playoff system right now. Michigan will beat Ohio State. Ohio State fans are going to hate me for that. I might not be able to see my family for Christmas, but that's okay because Michigan will beat Ohio State. Ohio State will be a 1-loss team after this weekend. And USC will win out the last regular season game, and they'll win the Pac-12 championship, whether they're playing Washington, Oregon, or Utah State. I'm really, really, really hoping that Oregon State beats Oregon, and they only got to play Washington because I don't know if they can beat Oregon. I think it's going to be a tough matchup in the Pac-12 championship, and then they got to go have 2 more games to win a championship nationally. That's a problem for me. So I'm really hoping that they don't have to play Oregon. They just have to play Washington. They'll walk all over them. If USC wins the Pac-12 and goes in as a 1-loss team, there is no way that you can put a 1-loss Big Ten team into the playoffs. You've got to put USC in there. You've got to take the winner of the Big Ten. You've got to take Georgia, the winner of the SEC. You've got to take TCU because they've had an amazing season and they'll be undefeated at that point. And you've got to take USC, which means Lincoln Riley will have one of the most improbable and historic turnarounds in the history of college football, and he will have led a team that was a bottom feeder. We can say since 2017, but they've technically been a bottom feeder since Pete Carroll left there. You can fight me on that. They've been a bottom feeder since Pete Carroll left that team. The last time that I remember actually legitimately talking about USC, and not in the terms that, oh, they might be good next year, they might not, was since Barkley left. What was that, like 2008, 2009? Bottom feeder. Lincoln Riley comes in one season, and now we're looking at USC as a team that, if they can keep Riley there, unless Riley bolts off to the NFL or he finds a job that's better than that, which the only job that I can think is better than that is going to Alabama and taking over for Saban, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. Unless that happens, look for USC to be a powerhouse year after year, and not one like Clemson. Clemson with 1 loss is already out of it. Clemson can't lose games during the season because in the ACC, all the teams are terrible. In the Pac-12, all the teams are ranked. Lincoln Riley could be in a position to recruit teams that make USC a perennial powerhouse beyond the level of what Pete Carroll could have ever done with that program. And Pete Carroll was a damn good coach. We'll be right back.
Your neighbor without the garage may be producing missiles. Unfortunately, they may not know it. Coming up next on the George Croom Experience.
G1 Commercial is a proud sponsor of the George Croom Experience. Stay tuned because more is coming up after this break.
What is an asset-based lending philosophy? An asset-based lending philosophy focuses on assets instead of income. Let me explain. A traditional mortgage requires the borrower to prove they make enough income to cover their mortgage payment and all other debts. The amount of your income used to pay your debt is limited to somewhere around 50%. This means that if your debt is greater than the maximum debt-to-income ratio, your loan is denied. An asset-based loan doesn't use your income to qualify. It uses the property securing the loan and its ability to generate cash flow or appreciation as the primary qualifier. In a nutshell, G1 Commercial Mortgage is a bank alternative mortgage finance company for real estate investors. If you get denied by a bank or do not want to go through the traditional bank underwriting process, give us a call.
G1 Commercial is a company built for investors with investors in mind. If you're an investor looking to invest in properties and you need a loan, you've been denied for a loan, you need to go to G1 Commercial and get your loan life together. All right, welcome back to the George Croom Experience, and I am, of course, George Croom. So here we go. We're going into an interesting subject. Bring us in, Decap.
Your local interstate could be a battleground you never saw coming.
So for those of you that don't know what these things are, they fall off your car in a snowstorm, an ice missile. Have you ever been driving down an interstate after it snows? For those of you in California and some places in Texas and other places, you'll have no clue what we're talking about. Arizona, some places in Arizona, you'll have no clue what we're talking about. For those of you who live in places like the Midwest, who live on the East Coast like I do now, you'll totally get what I'm talking about when I say an ice missile. So you're driving down the road and you're going at speed on the highway, and all of a sudden, somebody who didn't clean their car off has the ice sheet that's sitting on top of their car fly off, and it catapults into the air and careens towards your vehicle. Well, you're not going to swerve. And most of the time it breaks up. I will say I've seen it a lot because been in the Midwest, been here, lots of ice, lots of snow. I grew up in Germany and I've seen it. Flies off all the time. Most of the time, they fly up in the air. It disintegrates before it gets down to your vehicle. But there's sometimes, like in Kentucky this past week, where it falls and hits a windshield and it breaks it. It's been known that people who don't clean off their roofs, there's been times when the snow and ice has flown off of people's cars and it has actually killed the driver of the car who is passing them on the highway or who's behind them. Can you imagine dying on the road because an ice sheet flies off of someone's car because they didn't clean it off? So no, I'm not starting off the real estate section of this segment. I'm not starting this off by saying, "Hey, let's talk about real estate." I'm starting it off with saying, "Hey, if you are a car owner, clean your car off if it snows or if there's ice. Or if cleaning off the car isn't your thing, there is car covers that will cover your hood. They'll cover your windshield. They'll cover your roof. And you just clip them on right before a snowstorm, right before it ices. And then you just got to take that off. All the ice and snow will fall off. And then your windows and everything is clean. You don't have to worry about it. Don't drive around with ice and snow in your car, because it's actually dangerous and people could die. Nobody should die because you're too lazy or because it's too hard to clean ice off of your car. Be safe.
Freedom or free doom? Have our founding principles left us lost? Next on the George Croom Experience.
Wait, shouldn't every video your team puts out draw an emotion? Take the viewer on a journey. And highlight your markets as places they can live and call home.
Are you a real estate investor? Were you denied for a loan or looking for something other than the traditional bank underwriting process? Contact G1 Commercial today at 443-944-6103. Now for more of the George Croom Experience, presented by Ad Closure.
A joyous night of laughter. That's what patrons of Club Q, a Colorado Springs LGBTQ nightclub, said about the start of their evening last Saturday as they began to enjoy a night out. A gunman that will be unnamed on this show opened fire and began shattering the lives of numerous families in the process. In the end, 5 people were killed. Another 25 people were injured. This conjures up memories of the 2016 Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, where 49 people were shot and killed. It's too easy to talk about guns here. It's too easy to talk about mental illness. The uncomfortable truth is that there is an acceptable level of hatred against certain groups of people in this country, and the LGBTQ community is still very high on that list. My brother, who came out over 5 years ago, could have been in that nightclub. My cousins could have been enjoying a vacation and night out with their girlfriends in that nightclub. You can disagree with the person's life choices, but you do not have the right to disagree with their right to choose how they live that life. Over the past few weeks, we've seen FIFA ban armbands for calling for inclusiveness. We've seen Kyrie Irving banned for posting captionless links on social media. We've also seen the former president of the United States reinstated to Twitter, a network he was banned from after spreading misinformation. Not to mention, he got over 70 million votes in an election after failing to denounce the Proud Boys and the Klan. I'm tired of saying that we're better than this. Are we? Do we care to be? Do we care to be better? Or have we accepted a future, at least in the short term, that is beneath us? Be good to each other. I'll see you tomorrow. Ready to say goodnight?
Good night.
Hold on, they can't see you. Hold on, come say goodnight. Say goodnight.
Good night.
You smile.
Good night.